This is Joe Coogan in Minneapolis. I want to welcome you to our Monday Night Wellness webinar, and this is Monday, May 12th, and we're going to be discussing inflammatory skin conditions, specifically eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, and probably a few other things thrown in. We have Dr. Steve Cheney, who is a retired professor from the Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics and the Department of Nutrition at the University of North Carolina. Dr. Cheney taught first-year medical students there and ran a very active cancer research program. He's published in 90 papers. He has a PhD in biochemistry from UCLA, so brings a lot of expertise and wisdom to these webinars. And then Barb Lagoni is a Cornell graduate with a degree in food science and nutrition, and Barb has been doing nutritional counseling and educating thousands of people for close to 40 years with her Shackley business. So welcome, Barb and Dr. Cheney.
Thank you. And we decided to do this topic tonight because we've gotten so many requests for information about this, and because the incidence of these inflammatory skin conditions was much higher than I had realized. Eczema now affects 1 out of every 10 little babies, and 11% of infants and children, and 31 million Americans, and rosacea, which is kind of that redness of the cheeks, and sometimes it involves kind of enlargement of the nose, and some disfiguration can happen with that, and that affects 16 million Americans. And interesting, they said that the highest incidence is in the Northeast, which I thought was interesting. And then psoriasis, it's a chronic autoimmune condition, inflammatory disease, and that affects not only the skin but can also progress into the joints, and that's 2% of the U.S. population. That's like over 6 million people. So we're talking about a lot of folks who are affected by this. And so we wanted to begin tonight by inviting some guests who have dealt with eczema, starting with Elizabeth Bagwell from South Carolina, and that's a picture of her little girl Reese. And is that at 3 months old, Elizabeth? That picture.
It's 3 days apart actually, but she was 3 months old.
Wow. Well, tell us about what happened with Reese.
Well, a little after she was born, she started to develop a skin rash that we never really experienced with our first daughter. And by the time it was at its peak, which is on the picture on the left, it was blistered up and everything. We had a scheduled 3-month appointment. So the doctor told us it was a real severe case of eczema and wrote us a prescription for a steroid cream along with Zyrtec because she had some acid reflux. But I went home and I looked up the side effects, and one was that it could penetrate into her bloodstream on soft areas of the skin, which was on her face, the bends of her elbows, and behind her knees. And those are the key areas which the side effects said it could go into the bloodstream. It also said that it could permanently change the pigmentation of her skin. And after those two, I stopped reading. I was a little disgusted, and I told my husband, we can't do this yet. Like, let's find something else. So I was fairly new in Shackley, and I called my cousin Katie and my friend Harper, and we kind of got a game plan together. And we started with, because hers was severe, we were pretty aggressive with it. But I got the Optiflora, and I soaked off the first layer in cold water because she was so little, it wouldn't have gotten to her hole.
The probiotic capsule you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
For those who might be new, new on the
sorry.
call. Okay, sure. No, go ahead.
And I would crush up about 2 alfalfa, which helped with her reflux as well, about 1/4 of an Incredivite, which is the kids' multivitamin, 1/4 of the Nutriferon, and I just mixed all the crushed supplements together and spread it out with each feeding, so I wasn't, loading her up too much in one bottle. And then I would put the Optiflora probiotic in her mouth and just let her take a sip of her bottle, and she swallowed it right away. I also bathed her in the Basic H, which is our all-purpose cleaner. And when Harper told me about this, I thought she was kind of crazy. But it is hypoallergenic, so it is totally safe. And let me tell you, it helped big time because we were using a quote-unquote all-natural cleaner or bathing stuff, and it didn't do anything. Later, we added in the Omega Guard, which I just pierced, and I would put in her drink, which is the omega-3s, and the laundry. And she never had a flare-up until we visited my parents, who didn't use our laundry. They used Gain, and her face started to break out while we were there, and I couldn't figure out why, and then I realized it was the laundry because that was the only difference.
Wow.
And the pictures that you see are 3 days apart. You can see she was scratching because it was itching so bad in the first. She's now 20 months old, and we have not had any issues since. I mean, occasionally she'll have like a little patch, but nothing like this. And I'll just up one of the supplements.
Just increase them, and see, as they get bigger, the amount they need probably increases too.
Yeah, and we did.
Good. But so, oh gosh, is she a darl? Okay, so what was interesting is I thank you, Elizabeth. It's just encouraging because what was interesting is when we decided to do this topic, I just sent out an email asking people for who may have had eczema or any of the skin conditions in their family, if they'd had any results with it, that they would share. Well, I was deluged with success stories, and one of the ones that was sent to me was Barbara Taylor, who couldn't be on the call tonight, but I wanted to include her story because her daughter was a little bit older, but she was 6 years old when Barbara began using Shad products, but she had had eczema her entire life since she was a baby. And she said she tried every prescription that the doctor gave them, and she had and the over-the-counter creams and coconut oil and all these other things. I didn't even know what half of them were. And she said she had these large patches of dry red skin. They were on her hands and her wrists, and small spots were all over her body. Started on Shaklee vitamins, and she just started on them just because she thought it was a good idea for children to take a vitamin. Had no idea it would help the eczema. And because I emailed her and I said, do you have any pictures of, kind of before and after? And she said, no, because I didn't know it was going to help it, so I never thought to kind of document it. But she started on the probiotic, which I see I mistyped, and so that Optiflora probiotic that Elizabeth was just talking about, the Vitally multivitamin, and then she changed all her cleaning products and laundry products, same as Elizabeth did, to the Get Clean line, and she said after a month she just started to notice that the spots were fading, and she hadn't even made the connection yet. And then when she thought, I wonder if it's the Shaklee vitamins and the cleaner, so then she added some alfalfa, and she said she has been and this is fairly recently. She just started using the products in I think February, anyway, very, very recently, and she said that her daughter went out of town for spring break, and they ran out of she didn't have enough supplements to give her. And so she said, and by the time she came back, the eczema was starting to return. So that was another interesting report that we heard. So, Professor, talk to us a bit about the causes of eczema and what aggravates it and what we know about that.
Well, so again, this is, it's partly a skin irritation. So things like the caustic and toxic detergents and fabric softeners. And you know what? All of those things that they put in the detergents to make them smell nice, to make your clothes look bright, the fabric softeners to make them smell better, these are the kinds of things that can actually irritate the skin, and they can start the process going. They can aggravate the skin. They can worsen the symptoms. So it is that direct kind of stress right there to begin with. But it's also the allergic reactions. So in some cases, I mean, this is not everybody, but it could be milk, it could be eggs, gluten, soy, peanuts. Kids can have a lot of allergies, particularly if they haven't been on a good nutrition program from the time they were little. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of eliminating one thing at a time to find out what kind of allergies they might have. And sometimes that alone can help clear things up. Stress, we don't think of kids as being under stress, but, you don't get to call the shots when you're a kid. And stress affects some people more than others. Mm-hmm. Genetics. And we know that some kids are genetically predisposed to that. I think I hear your dogs in the background.
I know. The husband is supposed to be keeping him quiet. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
That's okay. I'm fine with that. We have dogs.
Okay. Continue, Professor.
Okay. Sometimes it can be genetics, and that is in this case, and we'll talk about it again, it's the inability to convert the short-chain omega-3 fatty acids, the kind of things that we get in vegetables and vegetable oils, walnuts, things like that. But those by themselves are good, but they really need to be converted to the long chain, the things like EPA and DHA, before they are able to reduce inflammation. And there is an inflammatory response to that. So some people are genetically less able to make that conversion than others, so they need more of that DHA and EPA. And then there's the high-fat diets, the fast food, the processed foods. And it's not quite clear whether it is the foods themselves that are the irritants, or the fact that if they're eating foods like that, they're not getting the fresh fruits and vegetables, the kinds of things that they really need for a healthy skin and a healthy immune system. But it's clear that those things can all be linked. So, and environmental allergens, dust, animal dander, people can be allergic to lots of things. So these are all part of the process.
Oh, great. Okay. So what we're going to share with you tonight is 4 steps to healthy skin. And there are 4 easy things to do. They're the things that the folks who have been reporting their results have shared, why they've had good success. And the first one, which may surprise you, has to do with the gut. It has to do with the gastrointestinal system. You've heard us talk before, if you've joined us on Monday night wellness webinars, about how somewhere between 70 and 80% of the immune system is in the gut. It's a key component of health to the body. We'll be talking about that. That's number 1. Number 2 is then providing the nutrients that the body needs to make healthy skin. You can't make healthy skin out of thin air. And you can't make it out of French fries, and you can't make it out of donuts. I mean, you have to have these essential nutrients to make healthy skin. And then you need to be able, our bodies have this wonderful system to reduce inflammation, but we need to give it the key components to reduce inflammation and to normalize the immune system. When we've messed it up, the immune system needs to have essential nutrients too. And then eliminate the irritants, eliminate the toxins, the things that are another stress factor to the body. So, Steve, let's talk about number 1.
Okay, so this is a quote, and you will hear this from holistic physicians quite often. It's not as well known as it should be, but our gut can be an entry point for a majority of diseases, and that's because we rely on the lining of our gut to keep bad things out of the body, or even things that can trigger allergic reactions and immune response and inflammation. So, we need to protect our gut above all else. Next slide. And this is where the probiotics come into play. If you have bad bacteria in your body, you have yeast and those sorts of things, there are a couple of things that happen. And as Barbara said, 80% of your immune system originates in the intestine. So, if you have bad bacteria, yeast, and that sort of thing in your intestine, that weakens your immune system, but it also really sends the immune system into attack mode. And this is where autoimmune responses can get triggered, those sorts of things. But there is another very important thing. If we have yeast overgrowth, we're using a lot of antibiotics and that sort of thing, that can damage, it can kind of poke holes in the lining of our intestine, causes something called leaky gut. And what happens then is toxins and partially digested food particles can actually go into the bloodstream. And that does two things. It creates an immune response. Our immune system goes into overdrive, and it can also create inflammation. And these are things that can trigger a lot of responses in the body, but eczema and psoriasis are among those.
Oops, sorry. I did a double click there.
Okay, so that's where the Optiflora comes in. You've got this triple encapsulated system. You can buy probiotics from a lot of companies where they talk about billions of them in there, but they don't protect them. So of those billions, only a tiny percent of them actually make it to the intestine unharmed, because the bacteria can be harmed by oxygen. They can be harmed by the acid pH of our stomach. So you need to protect them from all of those sorts of things. What Shackley does is use a triple encapsulated system so that, you start with 500 million. You might say, well, that's not nearly as much as brand X or Y or Z. But here's the thing. Because of that triple encapsulation process, 90% of them survive. You get 90% guaranteed delivery. Next one. So what you're doing is you're restoring the beneficial microorganisms and beneficial bacteria, but the main thing is they're crowding out the bad guys. The bad bacteria, the yeast, keeps them in check, so it strengthens the immune system. But more important, it normalizes the immune system because it takes it out of that overdrive mode. And once the immune system really is going at full strength, trying to fight off something like yeast in the intestine and trying to do it continuously, that's where those autoimmune responses can get triggered. So that's really important. And Barb, then let's come to
step number 2, right? And this one to me is just so logical. It's that you have to have the essential nutrients in order to create healthy skin, and to understand in our diet. Oh, why am I? To understand in the diet that there are foods that we eat that build and strengthen and make for healthy cells that Steve referred to earlier. There are other foods that we eat that actually increase inflammation. And as you might imagine, if you think about kind of the 4 basic food groups of meat and dairy and grains and sugars and those carbohydrates, those 3 categories increase inflammation in the body, and that's frankly what most Americans eat. The category that reduces inflammation, the one that provides the vitamins and the minerals and are the vegetables. It's the things we eat the least. And so there's a nice list of some of the most important things that we can be eating here and the things that we want to be avoiding, the foods, the caffeine, the dairy, the gluten, the meat, the sugar, the alcohol, and then drinking lots of water. Also we know that's important for keeping the body hydrated and flushing out the toxins. Steve?
Okay, so now if you look at it more specifically, and get moving beyond the foods, now, what we need is specifically, we need vitamin D, we need B complex, the B vitamins, because these are rapidly dividing cells. We need vitamin C because it does have the anti-inflammatory properties, as does vitamin E. So both the C and the E are protecting those intestinal cells, keeping them strong so you're less likely to get that leaky gut syndrome. You need zinc. That's important for the skin. You need carotenoids, the beta-carotene, the lutein, the zeaxanthine, all of those, and you need the omega-3s. So you could start with Vital E for economy, but you're probably going to want to add some of those other things along with it, like the B complex, the C, the carotenoids, the omega-3s, and so forth. Or you can go with Vitalizer because you've got all of those things together. And if you're talking about kids, we're talking about Incredivites. Great way to get those basic nutrients that your kids need.
And there's the Incredivites. It's a wonderful multi. And it's this multi, in today's world, boy, there's a lot of these gummy vitamins, and they, you're not going to get a lot of minerals in there. And this one, it not only has all the vitamins, it has all the minerals. Look at the level of vitamin D is just excellent, and then it has this additional do I have that on here about the lactoferrin? Yes. So it has a special protein that is abundant in mother's milk. It's immune protecting. It's just a wonderful, complete multi, but it's just a great way and to get that into kids if they're showing eczema. And in the case of Elizabeth, she had the tiny infant. She just cut one in half and crushed it. Was very smart. And then protein. Protein is essential. It's the building block of every cell in our body, and especially the skin, the fingernails, the hair. Whenever people start having difficulty with, they start noticing their hair getting dull and dry, fingernails breaking, skin looking dull, or in the case of eczema, just not making healthy cells, protein is one of the first things you want to reach for because it's the basis of every cell. And there is a whole variety. There's a energizing soy protein. It's one of the earlier products that Shaklee's had in the soy protein realm, which is a wonderful vegetable protein. There's the Shaklee 180 protein. There's the meal shakes. They're all wonderful. Some are soy, some are whey-based. They all stabilize blood sugar, but they are really healthy for the skin. Steve, number 3.
Okay, and then now we want to talk about reducing inflammation. And probably the simplest thing that we can do for that is the omega-3 fatty acids. These are the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA, along with GLA. And really what you want to do is aim for a 2-to-1 ratio of the DHA and EPA to the GLA. So you want the 2-to-1 ratio of the omega-3s to the GLA. Oops.
Did I jump too fast?
You jumped too fast again. The first bullet point is just what we talked about before. That some people with eczema have a genetic inability to completely metabolize the short chain omega-3s to the long ones, and that's one of the reasons why they're susceptible to eczema, to psoriasis. So now you can go to the next one. So now you've got the Mighty Smarts, a great source of DHA, which reduces inflammation. It's good for it's a kid-friendly omega-3. If they can chew, they can take the Mighty Smarts, and they're going to enjoy the Mighty Smarts. You get 100.
I enjoy the Mighty Smarts. Yeah, they taste great. I mean, I don't know how they made fish oil taste so good, but they're wonderful.
Right, and you get 100 milligrams per serving, which is enough to make a significant difference. And you don't get, it's all natural. You don't get any of that junk with Shaklee's chewables. It's not like these gummy vitamins where who knows what the heck's in them. And then for adults, or even for kids, because you heard a couple of stories already where even with young infants, you just puncture the omega-3 and you squeeze it into their juice, or if they're a little older, maybe their applesauce or something like that. One of the things to keep in mind is kids, if they start with something like that early enough, the taste is what they become used to.
That's right.
So it's not something that we should say, oh, it tastes fishy, they're not going to like it.
Mm-mm.
Don't
Some
assume
kids
that.
chew it. We have lots of kids who chew them.
Right. But again, this is particularly, though, for adults. Once you're older and maybe you don't want to chew on the DHAs, you don't have to. You get these easy-to-swallow tablets. You're getting 500 milligrams. That's an adult dose. Now, you might say, why go with Shaklee? It's a little bit more expensive than some of the others out there. And this is just to remind you, this was on CBS in 2010, but there was a lawsuit out in California where the manufacturer, there was one manufacturer that was making fish oil supplements. They had minimal or actually zero quality control standards. That allowed them to sell it real cheap. But, of course, with no quality control standards, not really much purification, these things were contaminated with PCBs. And, this company sued them and actually this company made it, and then it was relabeled. All the labels you see here, including ones that are not shown here in the major discount stores, they were all getting their source from that one company. Sometimes saying it was ultra pure, but it was that same source. It was contaminated PCBs. And interestingly enough, the FDA didn't act on this. So this environmental group sued them under what was Proposition 54, which is a fair labeling law. They were basically being sued because they didn't label them fish oil with PCBs.
Yeah, well, I can see why they wouldn't. But, fish oils are very trendy. And I don't think the average consumer realizes how little regulation there is of the entire supplement industry. So let's look at then the rest of the immune system. We've talked about reducing inflammation. There are a couple of products you're going to want to know about that really give extra support to the immune system and help to normalize it. And one of them is this remarkable product called Nutriferon. It's 4 herbal extracts. They're totally natural. But together, they help the body produce something called interferon, which is a key component of our immune system. It doesn't have side effects like pharmaceutical drugs. It was developed by a Nobel Prize-winning immunologist, Dr. Kojima, back in the 50s, and he spent the rest of his career indexing and cataloging all these different kinds of plant extracts till he found the right combination that would stimulate the body's own production of interferon. Now, one of the folks who shared with us about what a difference the eczema made for them. It was an adult. That Nutriferon was one of the products that they used that really significantly helped reduce their symptoms. If you have psoriasis, we're going to mention that in just a moment, that falls under the autoimmune category. So when you have an autoimmune condition, Nutriferon is very important for that, but you want to begin that very slowly because the immune system isn't reacting well. So you want to build the immune system up with all of the nutrients, the vitamin C, the vitamin E, the omegas, all of that, and then gradually add the nutriferon, and that will help get that immune system back in place. And for the children, I think Elizabeth mentioned that alfalfa was really beneficial for her little one. Chewable C is another important nutrient for the immune system. So we've got lots of ways to get nutrients for the immune system into these little bitties. And then that brings us to number 4, and that's avoiding toxins and irritants. And this is where I think every one of our moms mentioned that when they switched to the Shaklee cleaning products in general, but the laundry products in particular, they really noticed a significant improvement in their children's skin conditions. And interesting, when they did go somewhere then where they were having an overnight with somebody or a grandparent, how quickly they noticed that the skin then would react to those toxins when they were exposed to them again. And the same thing is true of the skincare products. There's a whole range of personal care products and children's baby products too that are just wonderful for these kids. I think Stephanie's going to mention some of those in just a few minutes. But the nice thing to know is about any of the Shaklee personal care products, any of the cleaning products, they are all free without toxins. And that brings us to Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Tell us then about Braden, because he was about a year old, you said, when he was diagnosed with eczema.
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us what happened with that.
Okay. What basically started happening was I was noticing really dry areas of skin, and they were really itchy. So I took him to the doctor, and she prescribed a steroid cream, and I just really didn't think anything of it. I just went along with what she said. Long story short, it continued for 3 years, and each time they would prescribe something different for him, along with a million different over-the-counter lotions, body washes, everything. Nobody ever addressed the fact about his diet or anything like that, but there was a time several months after we started the steroid creams where his growth just completely came to a standstill. And ever since then, he's 4 now, he is just basically not growing at all. So this last time, his doctor had prescribed him a new steroid cream as well as Zyrtec, and it just really hit me hard, and there was no way I could do that without having a blood test done for allergies. And so we had that done, and it came back 0 allergies. So I asked, what is the next step? And they said, just do the steroid cream and the Zyrtec. And I just couldn't do it because he was showing he had no allergies. There was no way I could give my little boy Zyrtec and feel good about it. So that was when I found Shaklee. This is all about a month ago. And what I tried with him was the probiotic capsule, the multivitamin, the Shaklee massage oil for the babies, as well as the soothing lotion. And within 4 days, his skin was so much better. He had stopped itching. He had stopped itching. The redness was completely gone. However, I did notice, and just like Barbara's, the little girl, the 6-year-old, when she was on spring break, we had just run out of our probiotic and the lotions. And within the week time that I didn't have that, I noticed that he was starting to flare up again.
So now you're going to be adding the Mighty Smarts.
Yes.
And that will just take it one step further. So you just started, but I've just been amazed after 3 years how quickly the body responds when you just began the supplement program. And Steve, after talking to these moms, we looked up some of the side effects of steroid creams. Do you want to walk us through some of that?
Yes, I remember, I think Barbara was concerned about the permanent discoloration of the skin. That's one of the side effects. You've got adrenal gland suppression. You can, you can suppress growth. That's another concern. But you've got things that you can also cause things that are very much like what you're trying to cure. It's interesting. If you listen to any of these ads on the TV where they talk about the side effects of these drugs that they're trying to sell you, the side effects almost always sound about like what they're trying to get you to take the stuff for. So you can get psoriasis, acne, steroid rosacea, which means it's caused by steroids, skin infections. I mean, the list goes on and on. But you can also weaken the immune system, which makes them prey to every bug that comes along. So you really want to avoid those steroid creams if you can.
Click. And so that brings us to psoriasis, which we wanted to mention. Psoriasis is a chronic skin problem, and the skin cells grow too quickly. And so they result in these thick white patches or red patches of flaking, constantly flaking off the skin. And so this is an autoimmune condition. And so all the things that we've just been talking about for the eczema are going to apply here as well, and then just adding the autoimmune component. And when we add the autoimmune component, one of the most important things to add for adults and for psoriasis, which is a step more serious in effect than the eczema, is this is where the diet plays a big role and the gut plays a big role, and being very careful about emphasizing the fresh produce, especially the vegetables, and really being careful about the gluten and the sugars and the wheat in general. This is where the diet makes plays a huge role. Steve?
And then we talk about the drugs that are used for treatment of psoriasis, and I'm not going to go through all the details here. You've got the usual suspects. You've got the steroid creams. You've got, and then with this it gets even worse because you have drugs that are used for cancer chemotherapy with all the side effects that you would expect for those. And the bottom line is that the biological agents, again, these are strong drugs with significant side effects. So, yes, you can treat it with that, but you don't want to have to do that if you don't have to.
And so the same things we've been talking about for eczema apply to psoriasis. Eating the healthy diet, avoiding the irritants to the skin, healing the gut, reducing the inflammation, normalizing the immune system, and then adding the nutrients so the body can make healthy skin. And here's our summary slide, Steve.
Okay, so again, if you talk about adults, eczema and psoriasis, you would start maybe with the Vitamin E, the multivitamin, but you'd also want to add the Omega Guard, the Keratomax, the Optiflora. And that's where Vitalizer makes great sense because it contains all of those nutrients plus a total of 80. So you're really giving the body everything it needs. Add some GLA, again, that 2-to-1 ratio of the omega-3s to the GLA. Protein shakes and bars because, again, you want to make sure you're getting the kind of healthy protein you need. And if you've got a weakened immune system, or really an overstressed immune system, that's where the nutriferon comes into play. You're really normalizing that immune system. As Barbara said, if it is an autoimmune disease, you start with that slowly, probably start with the other things first. And then the other thing on this was Vivix. We don't really know a whole lot about Vivix in skin diseases. We haven't had Vivix for very long. Love to hear some testimonials around that, but Vivix is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So, I would think it would probably be a benefit. If you're done with children, then you've got the Incredivites, the Mighty Smarts. If they're an infant, you can take that Omega Guard and squeeze the oil out. You've got the Optiflora, those are things you certainly heard about. A lot of those parents had great results with the Nutriferon using child-sized portions, so a quarter of a tablet, half a tablet, depending on the age of the child. And then the alfalfa is also anti-inflammatory. It's very inexpensive. It's something you can easily grind up, particularly if you put some chewable C with it. You can mix it with just about anything. And, these are, you've heard the testimonials. These are the things that these moms have been using.
Really great. And then we'll close with rosacea, which is a common skin disease. Affects people over the age of 30 typically, causes redness, as you can see in these photos of the nose and the cheeks and the chin and the forehead. Sometimes they get bumps and pimples on the red parts of their bodies. But here we go again, is heal the gut, reduce the inflammation, provide the nutrients for the skin. And you might, in addition, with rosacea, is look at the Infusel skincare products, and in particular there's one there called Calming Complex that helps to reduce inflammation of the skin applied topically. It's a really nice product. It also hydrates the skin, so many people like to use it, myself included, because it's just a really nice product to make for healthy skin, but it's particularly nice for people who are very fair-skinned and tend to have that redness. And with that, Professor, it is a wrap. Joe, do you have any questions?
Yes, there are lots of them here.
Oh, okay.
Tani Herman is suggesting a DVD called Forks Over Knives.
Forks Over Knives, uh-huh.
A DVD that discusses the difference or the battle between animal-based diet versus plant-based diets.
Thank you.
And that's I know that, Barbara, that's one of your favorite books, so yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Is Nutriferon okay to take while pregnant?
Again, it's not recommended for somebody who's pregnant, because, and this is where when you have to look at the way these things are tested. For nutrients, for herbal products, for actually many pharmaceutical products, it's considered unethical to test them on either children or pregnant women, so we really can't say. So for that reason, it's not recommended.
However, what we can say is that we've had Nutriferon for I always do the rest of the story here is that we've had Nutriferon for what, Steve? 10 years at least, I'm thinking. And we have many, many people who just have people with allergies and immune issues, and they've just had really great results with it. So what I always tell people is when you are pregnant, or even nursing, I'm very conservative about any kind of herbs. So always use the nutrients first, because you can get great results with vitamin C and, all these other ones we've mentioned to you. Omega is so important for babies, unborn babies, and babies as they're developing in the womb, and then after they're born, it's wonderful for their brains and their eyesight and all kinds of things. But Personally, I would take Nutriferon long before I would ever take any kind of a medication, because it's just made from these 4 natural plant extracts, and there's never been any adverse effects of any kind ever reported. So we've had it for such a long time, you'd think we would have heard about something by now. But it's just nice to start with the supplements first, the actual nutrients that the body needs, and then if you need the extra Nutriferon, you've got it there as a backup.
And Bob, I'll just add, while you're talking about the nutrients, there is also a study, and I didn't have a chance to go back and find it before this webinar, but there's also a study that was published a few years ago where they looked at women who consumed EPA and DHA or supplemented with EPA and DHA during pregnancy, and showed that their kids actually had less eczema.
Oh, yes. In fact, they referred to that a little bit in one of the earlier pieces here. Yes, exactly right. And I will tell you, Vivix, when it came out, do you remember, Joe, that people started noticing after we'd had it, because nobody knew what it was going to do. This is this resveratrol, polyphenol liquid tonic. And so we just kept observing any changes that we saw. And pretty soon some reports started coming through about people noticed on the back of their hands that the age spots were disappearing. And I remember calling you, Steve, and saying, why do you think that is? And we figured it was because the skin turns over so quickly that if you're having changes occurring in the body, it might show up in the skin first, right? And so we kept watching that. Well, Hans had on the back of his hand, for as long as I can remember, a very large, raised, dark mole. And it was big. I mean, it was probably 1/4 of an inch. I mean, it was a big thing. And we were doing a webinar on Vivix it was about 1.5 years, I think, after it had come out. And I was mentioning this thing about the skin to him, and he told me that since he had been using the Vivix, that thing fell off the back of his hand. I said, give me your hand, let me see that. And it did. I mean, it was like, and then you think, oh, was it something else? Was it? But, when you start putting the stories together, that's when you start to see these patterns. So I think Vivix is really an amazing product. So, especially for adults, because it's repairing cells. It repairs DNA, and it reduces inflammation, and it's a fabulous product. Anything else, Joe, we need to cover?
Yes. Carrie said that she tried what Stephanie Bruce did. I tried it on my son, and it has not worked. What should I do next?
So Stephanie hadn't added the omega yet.
Right.
Right. So the thing you want to add is make sure you're doing the multivitamin. So you're adding the nutrients. Number 2, you want to add the Mighty Smarts if it's a little one, right? Get the omegas in there, because almost always there is a direct relationship between the omegas, the EPA and the GLA, and skin stuff. And then the laundry products.
Right.
You put the Optiflora in there too, also, right?
Did I do that?
Yes.
No, I didn't. Yeah, and then the gut, right? The 4 things right there. And I think everybody did the Optiflora. That was everyone who reported out said that was a significant one too. So those 4 things.
All right. Have you heard of people who are allergic to alfalfa being able to take Shaklee alfalfa?
Absolutely.
I have, yes.
Yeah. I can't tell you why. I don't know why people don't. In fact, people with allergies love alfalfa. It acts like a natural kind of decongestant antihistamine. People just love it. And, the alfalfa.
I guess we have to define what that allergy to alfalfa is. If you're talking about alfalfa in the field, you're probably talking about pollen, which is a lot different than what's in the alfalfa tablets. That's from the roots.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
What
was that about?
He's saying if you're allergic to...
It's from the leaves, but it's not the pollen.
Oh, interesting.
So, if you're on the farm and you're exposed to, alfalfa pollen, yes, you could have a tremendous allergy to it, but I don't think it's the same. It's not. You could have an allergy to the alfalfa tablets, but that would be a whole different thing.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And alfalfa is really a fascinating plant because it has such deep roots. The farmers tell us it extends almost 20 feet into the soil, so it sucks up all the good stuff, all the trace minerals, that come from deep into the soil. So it is one of the most nutritious foods there is. It was a human food in biblical times. Mm-hmm. Really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Can calming complex be used topically? That's what it is.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah. Don't drink it.
I would recommend you use it topically.
Did I say that? I should be more clear, shouldn't I? Yes, no, calming complex is fantastic too. And you know what? It's kind of like a very sheer gel, so it lasts a long time.
Yeah.
It's really a lovely
Well, and it's good for just any skin irritation, sunburn, chapping, windburn.
Yeah.
Someone has a question about referring to the whey comment on the slides with the protein. I wasn't aware that meal shakes were whey-based.
Milk, they're milk powder
They
based.
are.
Mm-hmm.
But they're whey-based, but they are also lactose-free. So unless you have allergies to milk protein, you shouldn't have any problems with them.
Okay. So
I see the question about if you're allergic to fish, can you take Mighty Smarts? You want to take that, Steve?
And the answer is you would want to take them cautiously. Try just a little bit at a time. We have a very good friend of ours who is deathly allergic to fish, and he can use Mighty Smarts. He can also use the omega-3s and the Vitalizer without any problems. But he can't use the gel capsules.
Well, that's interesting. Usually,
You just need to be cautious about it.
Sure. When you have a food allergy, though, typically you're allergic to the protein part of a food, right?
Typically. Although it can vary. I mean, the most common milk allergy is to lactose. It's lactose intolerance. People say I'm allergic to milk, but it's really the lactose intolerance.
I was going to say, I don't think of it as an allergy.
The less the milk protein is lactose intolerance really isn't an allergy, but I don't think that many people distinguish that. They just know they can't drink milk.
Yeah.
Well, they can't produce the digestive enzyme to break it down. But you know what is interesting about that is I have had many people tell me after they've been on Optiflora, the probiotic, that they're able to tolerate milk better again. But I don't think milk is the world's greatest food, so for people to go lightly on milk, I don't think it's a bad thing. Okay.
And it's not bad for...
Now you've got my curiosity up. I know one of the components of Optiflora is a lactobacillus, so I'll have to see if that breaks down lactose.
Oh, you haven't heard that before? Oh, I'll have to get somebody on who does that. Yeah.
What about EasyJust? Does that help breaking down
Yeah.
Yes, that
lactose?
does.
Okay. One more here. I have a 9-year-old is allergic to soy. Can he still take our protein? And he's also allergic to lactose, which we've just been discovering.
Oh, that kind of makes it tricky, doesn't it?
Well, no. So, see, the soy and the lactose, again, unless it's the whey protein that he's allergic to, he can use the whey products. So we've got a whey version of the 180, and we also have the meal shakes. And we have the Physique. Those are our 3 whey-based products.
And they're all yummy.
They're all yummy. They're all lactose-free.
Okay, can you please repeat if my son can take our protein?
The one who had the soy allergy and
soy
lactose
and lactose, right.
Yes, the answer would be yes, because the whey protein products are lactose-free.
And that's whey protein.
As long as you're sure that it is soy and lactose. If there's a whey protein allergy, then there could be a problem, and you would just be very cautious.
And start, even before you do that, start with the Optiflora and start healing the gut.
Yes.
Watch the diet. Watch the diet, 6 to 9 vegetables a day, and you start improving everything about digestion.
If you're allergic to soybean oil, is Shaklee soils different?
Soybean oil?
Yeah.
You're allergic to soybean oil? Huh.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
Again, that's one you'd have to try cautiously. The soy, there's very little of the soy oil in the soy protein.
But again, anytime you have a food allergy,
it's more likely to be the protein. And so maybe that what you think is a soy oil allergy is that a lot of the soy oils aren't really that pure.
Yeah. And I would start, though, with when you know that you're having reactions to food, sensitivities, heal the gut. Optiflora, 6 to 9 vegetables in the diet. Just start eating really healthy foods and try eliminating as best you can. It's not easy, wheat and sugars, and it is just, in fact, we did a session on digestion, Steve, didn't we, about how the food you eat changes the whole environment of your gut and what grows in there and your bacteria in there, and it's fascinating. So
there was a study that was just published a short while ago that shows that if you go to an all-vegetable diet, you can change the bacteria in your gut within 4 days.
Wow.
4 days?
Yep.
True.
Yeah, so when you have food sensitivities, just think about getting the gut into a healthier place by eating, I always think about human bodies were designed to eat the foods that nature gave us, that grow naturally out of the earth. And that's primarily vegetables and nuts and seeds, and that it's not the processed stuff. It's not even the grains that develop later. It's those wonderful, especially vegetables, that then the rest of it will take care of itself, but really work on that because it makes a huge difference. That's really what the body loves. Okay, is it a wrap, Joe?
Yeah, and there's more questions about soy, but Shackley has that great brochure on the whole, all these issues around soy. I don't remember what the title of it is, but they can go to the Shackley Library and look it up, and that answers, I think, a lot of questions. Because there's questions here about can women with breast cancer take soy, or if I've had breast cancer, can I take soy?
Oh, we did a great session on soy, Steve, about that. They're archived in Better Health in 31 days, and
also on my health tips from the professor, which is just www.healthtipsfromtheprofessor.com. So just like it sounds, I have a free video, "The Truth About Soy."
Oh, great!
Which covers a lot of that information.
That's a very, very good session. Yeah, we did a couple on those, and The Truth About Soy was on there. That's right. So we have it in 2 places. Very good. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back here again next Monday. It'll be interesting for me to see what our topic is going to be. Allergies.
Perfect.
Perfect. It's perfect. It's May. It's perfect. Okay. We'll be talking about allergies next Monday. So
thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you to the ladies who shared their stories. That was really great.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you, Stephanie. Great.
Good night.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Night-night. Thanks,
you.
Professor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.